What is going on, everyone? Today we're going to be ranking all 7 The Walking Dead universe shows from the worst to the best. Of course, 2 of these shows are still getting more seasons, that of course being Dead City and the Daryl Dixon show, but now that we have a 7 whole The Walking Dead shows, all of them with at least having finished 1 season, why not rank them? In number 7 spot is easily going to be Tales of the Walking Dead. This is one of the worst TV shows I have ever seen. There's only 1 season of it, it's only 6 episodes, it's really not a required viewing for anyone. But there's some positives there. I think the overall performances from the actors in it were totally fine. I think there's some good actors and actresses that are actually in the show, one of which being Terry Crews, which I was really excited to see him in The Walking Dead, and he was funny. You know, I enjoyed those parts in that episode at least a little bit. Of course, there was also the Alpha episode, which is probably the only episode worth watching, but even then it doesn't add that much context to Alpha's character, so I feel like you don't even really have to watch it. Like it really doesn't add enough context for it to be a necessary viewing. But other than that, it's just not a very good show. So of course this show is an anthology series, meaning each episode is a completely new story with completely new characters each time, and that concept could work if the actual stories they were focusing on were interesting and didn't require you to get interested in the characters in order to enjoy it. That's the problem with these anthology episodes, is that they're not interesting scenarios enough for it to make a decent episode. I think what they can actually do with maybe if they do a season 2 of Tales of the Walking Dead, the best way to do it is just go around the world and have like a new country each episode and show what the outbreak was like at the beginning of the apocalypse for each of those countries. You can do an episode of what like Brazil was looking like during the apocalypse and just focus on like one, group of characters for the entire episode. That could work. You do that for each country, a bunch of different countries. That could be a really interesting Tales of the Walking Dead series, or focus on characters we already know, like of course the Alpha episode. But some of these episodes just drop these new characters in here and expect you to care about them within the 40-minute runtime that these episodes have. But that's not very easy to do because, first of all, they're not very good characters, and second of all, it's just not enough time to care about them. I just can't get latched onto them, and these episodes are built in a way that relies on enjoying these characters and caring about them, and it's just not easy to do when they don't really give you enough material to work with. And the actual stuff that happens in these episodes just does not belong in the Walking Dead universe at all. I mean, sure, if they're going to get experimental, this is the best series to be experimental, but they go too far here. They have an episode that's literally the Groundhog Day movie put into The Walking Dead, which is a really cool concept for a lot of movies, but not for The Walking Dead. There's also episodes that deal with like ghosts, and I know it's not exactly in the way you'd think, but it's just like, why is this in The Walking Dead? It just doesn't belong here. And if it was executed well, if the writing was great, if the directing was great, then I would at least accept it and deal with it, because if you're gonna have good stuff, it doesn't matter how crazy it is, as long as it's good, right? But it's just not good. So not really much to say there. Definitely a waste of a series. In number 6 spot is going to be The Walking Dead World Beyond, which of course had 2 seasons and that was it. And I was actually really excited for this series because I knew it was going to be building up the CRM and explaining like what that actual community is like. Because for years we knew that obviously this is the group that took Rick Grimes and we wanted to learn more about them. And I do think season 2 did a decent job of explaining CRM, what they're like. I would say season 2 is worth watching. But season 1 doesn't really go in depth enough with CRM. They don't really focus on them that much because season 1 is mainly focused on the kids, these characters that we kind of follow throughout the show. And I kind of wish they just scrapped the whole kid thing and instead just made the whole show based exclusively on the CRM, have characters that work within CRM, live within that community. And I know they get to that point in season 2, of course, but having these other characters at the campus colony that we follow in season 1, I know they need us to care about them, but I just never really found a point where I could care about these characters, and it has nothing to do with the actors. They did a fine job with what they were given. It's just the stories they were given, the writing, the dialogue, all of it was just didn't work for me. And a lot of the writing and dialogue was very amateur. Even when you got to the CRM stuff, it did feel a lot more amateur. I mean, compared to the CRM stuff in The Ones Who Live, it's like night and day difference. Like The Ones Who Live takes everything a lot more seriously. There's a lot more quality to the writing. I feel like the actual threat of the CRM, even though they do a lot of crazy things in World Beyond, the threat there just doesn't feel as large as it ends up feeling in The Ones Who Live show. But overall, just for the CRM stuff, I think it's worth watching, so it's definitely not as pointless as Tales of the Walking Dead, but it is definitely going to be a show that there's going to be a lot of episodes you're just not going to be interested in. It's a whole 2-season show with 10 episodes in each season, so it's definitely a lot to get through, but I think it's relatively interesting here or there. And it was cool to see Jadis in the show as well. That was fun. In number 5 spot is going to be Fear the Walking Dead. Fear the Walking Dead is hard to rank because it's obviously so many seasons. Most of these shows don't have that many seasons. So with 8 seasons, you're bound to have a lot of good and a lot of bad. And that is exactly what Fear the Walking Dead is. There are some seasons here, specifically season 3, season 4, and season 6, in my opinion, that I think are actually really good. There's a lot of solid stuff. There's a lot of solid episodes. There are some episodes in the show that are some of the best episodes in the Walking Dead universe. There's some characters that are some of the best characters in the Walking Dead universe. Travis is a great character. Troy's a great character. Obviously, Morgan's in it for a couple seasons. He's one of my favorite characters in the Walking Dead universe. So you have a lot of cool stuff here. But then there's also some stuff that is some of the worst stuff I've ever seen in the Walking Dead universe, like season 7 and 8. And there's some other moments in season 5 and end of season 4. There's a lot of just terrible, terrible things in terms of writing, directing, choreography. A lot of just goofy moments that just don't work. You could tell they kind of gave up in season 7 and 8. They just didn't really care anymore. And it was unfortunate because there was a lot of good build up in season 6 and there was a lot of cool stuff with these characters. But it just felt like they gave up in season 7 and 8. They just didn't care anymore. And it really showed in the actual show, and it was unfortunate. I really wish the show could have gotten a better ending. I wish they merged it with The Walking Dead's final season. That was always my idea. It was they should end it with season 6 or 7 and then have the ending be all the characters getting to Commonwealth, and then maybe those characters could actually be a part of the last season of The Walking Dead. I think that would be really cool. Or maybe if they do this crossover event that everyone's been talking about in the future, perhaps that could be the time where they finally decide to combine the Fear the Walking Dead characters with the main Walking Dead characters. But a lot of the good ones they killed off anyways, so I mean, I don't know, man. There's a lot of cool stuff that, you know, the show did, but at the same time, it's also just not that great in totality. In number 4 spot is going to be The Walking Dead Dead City. So of course, we are now getting to the Walking Dead sequel spinoffs, which out of all the spinoffs, they are the best spinoffs, for sure. They're all only 1 season so far and only 6 episodes, but even with that being said, they still are the best shows of, you know, the spin-offs from The Walking Dead. And Dead City, I think, is my least favorite of the sequel spin-offs. I think Negan and Maggie obviously being together was going to be huge for me. I was really excited to see them together. I was really excited to see what's going to happen with them in New York City. But honestly, after season 11, I started to feel like I don't really know if I need it anymore, because they originally announced Dead City way before season 11 even happened. Or I think it was right before season 11 came out, or maybe it was like in between one of the breaks between, I think, part 1 and part 2 of season 11. I'm not exactly sure when they announced it, but I recall feeling like a lot of excitement for it. But then I was like, you know, after watching season 11, they ended these character storylines so well that I kind of felt like it'd be weird to bring it all back. And I thought that could still work. There's still a way to make it work, but they started to get a bit redundant with it. Like, they kept having the same arguments all over again. And I was just like, haven't we done this already? We've gone through and done this already. So I don't mind the pairing. I just think there's definitely a better way they could have gone about it. It almost makes me feel like we should have gotten the Negan and Daryl show or something. Maybe that would have worked out better. Or perhaps this would have been a weird pairing, but it could still work. Negan and Carol, we've seen them paired before. Why not again? I don't know. I think there's just different things they maybe could have done, because the Negan and Maggie pairing, it works. It's just, it forces them down that redundant path of them constantly bickering towards each other. And I feel like season 11 already kind of wrapped all that up. We didn't really need to see much more of that. But the show itself is still really solid. It has a lot of good directing, a lot of good writing. I think the Croat is a relatively interesting villain. I like how he has this whole backstory with Negan, the fact that he used to be a savior. That adds a lot of complexity to Negan's character and how he kind of deals with the Croat. The New York City setting was awesome. I mean, it doesn't always look like New York City. They definitely try to, you know, force a lot of the scenes indoors just to make it work a bit better, because I don't think they actually shot in New York City. I believe they shot in New Jersey, in like the city area part of New Jersey, which kind of makes it feel like it's New York, but it's actually not really New York. But there's a lot of cool stuff they do with it. There's a lot of cool locations from, you know, New York City that they go into, and I think it's overall really enjoyable series. I think the side characters weren't the best though. I honestly can't think of many side characters that I found that much interest in, but just watching Negan and Maggie together fighting, and I liked it. I really did. I really had a good time with this show, and I'm really excited for season 2. And I can't wait to see what's going to happen next. In number 3 spot is going to be The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon. So Daryl Dixon really surprised me, because this was the show of all the sequel spinoffs I was the least excited for, because Daryl's definitely my least favorite character of all of these characters within these sequel spinoffs. He's still a really cool character. He's still in my top 10 favorite characters of The Walking Dead, but, you know, compared to Negan, Maggie, Rick, and Michonne, he's not as interesting to me. You know, he's a fun character to watch, but I felt like I didn't really need to see more of his character. I feel like we saw so much of him already in the main show. but they kind of shocked me with the level of quality and just overall care and passion that I feel like the show has. And I'm not sure why that is. It probably feels the most unique out of any Walking Dead show. It doesn't feel like The Walking Dead at all, but in a good way. And I love seeing France. I think it was a really cool location for the series. The way Daryl got there, it makes sense. It worked. I honestly don't really have any significant issues with this show. I feel like maybe there's a couple clunky moments here or there, but overall, it is really good. It has really high budget. You can tell they really put a lot of work into the set pieces. Everything feels so lively and lived in. And the side characters are great here. Isabella is one of the best side characters in The Walking Dead history. Right from the first episode, I knew this show was going to be something really special. And they already have a season 2, ready to go. It's going to be coming out this summer. And they apparently have a season 3 planned as well, which I'm not too sure about that. I guess we'll see if that's actually going to happen or not. But I mean, they definitely have a lot of plans here. And the whole variant walkers thing is definitely being explored in the show more than anything. They haven't really explored it too much in the other shows. But so far, they've been doing some cool stuff with that, like the burning walkers, for example. And then obviously they had Daryl fight like a, supercharged walker in that one episode. And I thought it was cool. And I really hope that this group has more connections to CRM going forward. I think that'll make them a lot more interesting. And perhaps the events of, The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live will affect season 2. I'm not exactly sure. But overall, it's a solid show. In number 2 spot is going to be The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live. So of course, out of all the spinoffs, this is by far the best one. This by far has some of the best quality and probably the highest budget out of any Walking Dead show ever. Like, it has such great quality to it, especially the first few episodes. You can tell how much work they put into this. It is purely a love letter to fans of Rick and Michonne in a lot of ways, and overall just showing their romance together. And they have to overcome a lot. It's not a perfect romance where they meet each other and then everything's just fine. They had to go through a lot of struggles, and that's kind of what episode 4 was showcasing the struggles between each other, being away from each other for so long, and Rick kind of not necessarily believing into what CRM is, but he kind of had hope for it. He was hoping that it could turn into something great, which eventually by the end of the series, it does become something great. My only issue with this whole series, honestly, is just some missed opportunities and just the fact that I felt like the ending was a bit rushed, in particular with CRM. Obviously, Rick and Michonne and their story was not rushed. I think they handled that very well. But in terms of ending CRM, and I know they're technically not ending, but more so kind of changing them, it happened too quickly. I felt like it was too fast. And I know they probably don't want to do a season 2 perhaps, and if they do, maybe it'll be about something completely different. But I think either they needed a season 2 or they needed to continue the CRM stuff in a movie maybe afterwards. And I don't know if it had to include Rick and Michonne, but I just don't think they should have wrapped all this stuff up that fast. And it definitely shouldn't have been that easy. But the show itself is incredible. Like most of the episodes, I love how deeply character driven it is with Rick and Michonne. And even the other characters, they have so many side characters here that are fantastic. Nat was literally in one episode and he was one of the best characters in the Walking Dead universe. Okafor as well. Fantastic. Thorne was great. Beale, for the little bit we had him there, was really cool. I loved seeing Terry O'Quinn there as Beale. He was awesome. But I would love to see more of him, of course. But for when he was there, he was great. Jadis, of course, just probably the best performances Jadis has ever had. And they actually gave her a really solid end to her character. So that was awesome. And all the reunions. I mean, just seeing Rick and Michonne have that reunion, and then seeing Rick and Michonne, Judith and RJ having that reunion. All those reunions, so much emotions here. I think I cried like 4 times throughout this entire show. And it was only 6 episodes, so that's pretty impressive in my opinion. And in the number 1 spot, of course, has to be the original Walking Dead series. It wouldn't make sense to not put the original Walking Dead series in the number 1 spot. It's my favorite show of all time, of course. And it's obviously unfair to compare because it's a whole 11 seasons, but who cares? We're doing that anyways. There's a lot of ups and downs here. Obviously, if we're talking just purely the consistency and quality, obviously it's not going to win there because there are some episodes that are really bad in this show. But when you look at seasons 4, 5, 6, season 9, and a couple other seasons throughout the show, seasons 2 and 3 especially, there are so many great seasons here that are amongst some of the best Walking Dead content of all time. You, of course, have some seasons that I don't like too much, like season 7 and 10, but those are few and far between. Majority of the show is fantastic. Majority of the show is very entertaining, very well written. Some amazing character work, some of the best performances I've seen on television. I think that inconsistency is like the only thing that holds back the show from being even better because, yeah, there are some points where, yeah, it just doesn't feel like the quality's always kept up to standard all the time. But watching through the 11 seasons of this show throughout the past decade of my life has been a life-changing experience. And obviously, it kind of decided me to create this channel in the first place. I would have never made this channel if it wasn't for The Walking Dead. It's kind of what got me interested in making TV show content for YouTube anyways. So absolutely adore this show, and it's always going to be the greatest Walking Dead show. I don't think they're ever going to create a new show in the future that's going to end up being better than it. It's entirely possible. If they do that Clementine adaptation I've been saying they should do, perhaps that could be better, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'd love to see your guys' rankings. Rank all 7 of the Walking Dead shows from the worst to the best. Peace out, everyone.